want the word, respect me.
10 WWE wrestlers who refuse to lose at WrestleMania. Number 10, Triple H to Booker T. Now, the feud between Triple H and Booker T left a very bad taste in the mouths of the fans. The feud had a very disturbing theme attached to it. With the build being so controversial, it seemed like a certainty that Booker would walk out of WrestleMania 19 as world champion. Unfortunately, that wasn't what happened. Instead, Triple H won clean on the grand stage, and if this wasn't bad enough, the game would take a lifetime to pin Booker after the final pedigree, which in turn made Booker look completely inferior. And this was the time period where it was widely reported that the game was executing his political power. This was the worst example of it here. There was no reason for Triple H to win the match, and although it was claimed by numerous writers that Booker's world title win would have been lost in the shuffle, this still didn't excuse Triple H's victory. Number 9, Shawn Michaels to Bret Hart. Now, the original plan for WrestleMania 13 was to see Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart collide in a rematch from their WrestleMania 12 Classic. Now, the match would have been the main event of the show, and the match would have seen Hart get his win back and win the WWE title in the process. But the match would never go ahead, as HBK quote-unquote lost his smile, and he was forced to take time away from WWE television due to a supposed injury. It was well documented at the time that HBK and Hart had personal issues, and it was widely believed backstage and amongst fans that HBK simply didn't want to put over Hart on the grand stage of WrestleMania. A PW Torch Insight article at the time offered fascinating insight into the situation, and the website stated that although HBK's knee injury was somewhat legitimate, the timing was peculiar. The rest of the story has been anything but easy to decipher. Fellow WWF wrestlers were skeptical of Michaels' claim regarding his knee, including Bret Hart on the air the following Sunday. Michaels wrestled the previous weekend. He did not complain of a serious knee injury after the match, nor was he favoring it that weekend. He didn't wrestle again and showed up on Thursday saying his knee was in too bad of a shape to wrestle. Since then, the WWF has clarified that the problem with his knee was a cumulative injury that did not happen suddenly. The report continued by saying that there is not skepticism that Michaels actually has problems with his knee, but the timing of the decision has led to quite a bit of speculation. Among that speculation, as expected, were reports that Michaels on his own, at the urging of Vince McMahon, was headed into rehab for painkillers or other drugs. Sources say Michaels is not in fact going into drug rehab. The story took another crazy turn when it was widely reported that there was concern that HBK was going to show up on WCW television. Obviously that didn't happen, but this highlighted how wild and unpredictable the wrestling world was in 1997. Number 8, Chris Jericho to Fandango. When Chris Jericho was informed by Vince McMahon that he'd be working with Fandango at WrestleMania 29, he was appalled. But Jericho's mood got increasingly worse when he was told that he would be putting over the professional dancer at Mania, and he was so angry that he was legitimately going to quit the company. But this was usual for Jericho, as he was a talent that was traditionally known for always being willing to put others over, but that wasn't the case here. Jericho did have a good point. Fandango was basically a novelty act, and it seemed like a huge waste of Jericho's talents at WrestleMania. It was after a conversation with The Undertaker where Jericho's refusal would be rescinded, and Jericho would head into WrestleMania and do the honors for the recently debuted star. Number 7, Hulk Hogan to The Rock. But when Hulk Hogan was given the creative direction for WrestleMania 18 and he was going to be booked to lose to The Rock, he was more than happy. But that was until the day of the show when he tried to get the match finish changed, as Hogan had no interest in putting over the next generation. On the Bill Simmons podcast with former WWE writer Brian Gewirtz, Simmons recalled Hulk Hogan not wanting to job to The Rock on the day of WrestleMania 18. Hulk was going to lose and get over, and it was going to be great for The Rock. Then at the last second, Hulk's like, I don't know if I'm going to do this. Unfortunately for Hogan, he didn't have the same sway as he did in the 90s, but this wasn't WCW, so the match finish went ahead as planned. Could you imagine Hogan going over The Rock? Number 6, The Undertaker to Brock Lesnar. Now, The Undertaker was stunned when he was told that he would be losing to Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 30. Initially, the dead man was booked to win the match, but on the day of the show, Vince McMahon changed the finish, and he wanted Lesnar to receive arguably the biggest win in WWE history. According to The Undertaker on Busted Open Radio, he didn't exactly outright refuse to play ball, but he questioned the match outcome, as he didn't think Lesnar needed a nod. I didn't feel like Brock needed it, right? He was an attraction all to himself by that time. And people, all the internet geniuses, they're saying, well, he had lost this, and he didn't do this, and he didn't do that. He needed a win, but Brock didn't need it. Would it have helped Bray? Obviously it would have helped Bray. Would it have skyrocketed Roman? Probably, if they hadn't gotten that juice. But again, it wasn't my call. I questioned it. Fans often go back and forth in terms of whether or not WWE really made the right call. Based on WWE basically erasing Lesnar from the history books, they're no doubt regretting the controversial booking move. Number 5, Ryback to Mark Henry. Ryback was set for a significant push coming out of WrestleMania 29. The popular star was going to turn heel and feud with John Cena over the WWE title. Despite these grand plans, WWE made the questionable call to have Ryback lose clean to Mark Henry at WrestleMania. There was no rhyme or reason as to why Ryback lost, and even Ryback knew it was the wrong call. Speaking to Sports Illustrated, this is what the former WWE name had to say regarding the controversial finish. I was under the assumption that I was going over Mark Henry at WrestleMania and then turning heel the next night on John Cena. When I found days before that I was not going over, but they wanted me to fall on my face with my finish and look like an idiot, I said there was no way I was doing that. I asked, why are we doing this? I went to Vince and spoke with him for 30 minutes in Gorilla, the staging area right behind the curtain, and he lied to me how this was the reason for my heel turn. But I fell on my face and tripped. I just couldn't cut it, and that's why I turned heel. Ryback would then go into conspiracy mode and claim that WWE were trying to ruin his brand. Ultimately though, they were just trying to run me into the ground and ruin my brand forever. And that happened time and time again. As you saw with that finish, it made 0 sense from a booking standpoint to book me to fall flat on my face and then the next night to turn me heel. The reaction to my heel turn was louder than ever. And then what did Vince do? He came to me personally and said, we're taking away all your merchandise. I want your merchandise to tank and no more, feed me more. Which was the thing that put me on the map. Ryback is correct in the sense that the loss made no sense, and it would have been logical to book Ryback to receive a convincing win on the grand stage, yet WWE evidently had other ideas. Number 4, Triple H to Sting. Our fans around the world were left in total disbelief when Triple H pinned Sting at WrestleMania 31. The assumption was that the game would put over Sting in what happened to be Sting's first ever WWE match. There were rumors that both Vince McMahon and Triple H took issue with the idea of putting Sting over, and knowing what we know about McMahon's attitude towards ex-WCW talent, as well as the game's selfishness at times, this wouldn't come as a complete surprise. Ultimately, it was just a backwards move that had zero benefit to anyone. Even Jim Ross, who was one of Triple H's biggest defenders, had a scathing take on the matter on his podcast. Well, he should not have lost at WrestleMania. I didn't understand it. It helped nobody. It wasn't a feel-good moment. Handshake or no handshake, it was poor strategy, poor booking in my opinion. And if it got over $1 million, I would have said, well, they've got it. They were right and I was wrong. I just don't believe that is the case this time. He needed to get some wins. People wanted to see Sting win in WWE, and why Sting was not allowed to win in a WWE ring is unfathomable. And the consensus in the 10 years after the show is that the match should not have taken place. WWE had both The Undertaker and Sting healthy and available for WrestleMania 31, and they could have easily delivered the dream match of a lifetime. Number 3, Sasha Banks to the Iconics. But WWE made the right call by making Sasha Banks and Bayley the inaugural Women's Tag Team Champions. To cement the reign and the titles, the duo needed an extended run with the titles, but at WrestleMania 35, they dropped the titles after just 49 days. It was claimed that Sasha Banks took issue with dropping the titles to the Iconics, and the match outcome was a contributing factor to her taking a leave of absence from WWE. Banks had every right to be annoyed at the situation. The move was completely backwards, and this outcome was questioned even more when it became apparent within a matter of weeks that WWE had zero plans for the Iconics tag title reign. Number 2, Shawn Michaels to Stone Cold Steve Austin. Shawn Michaels was in a very bad place in early 1998, and due to various factors, including a serious back injury, his last match was set for WrestleMania 14. HBK was going to wrestle and put over Stone Cold Steve Austin in the main event of the show and pass the torch to the new face of WWE in the process. Well, the problem was that the 90s HBK was being, well, the 90s HBK. There were rumors backstage in WWE that HBK was going to refuse to put Austin over, and these rumors got so intense that within WWE, The Undertaker almost got physical with Mr. WrestleMania. The dead man himself discussed this during an out-of-character interview with the New York Post, saying, "Shawn was being Shawn in my opinion, and I didn't know if he was going to do it. My intention was to make sure one way or another business was done that night. I felt so bad because our relationship had changed so much that he goes, well, you're really going to beat me up? I was like, no man, that's just all rumor. Taping my hands up and everything, come on. Whole time in my head I'm like, I'm just gonna smash you if you didn't drop that belt to Steve. But yeah, he's a completely different person. I love him to death now. But yeah, that's the story. I was sitting there, hands taped, ready to do whatever I needed to be done. HBK would reluctantly put over Austin in the main event of the show, and this would end up being his last match until the summer of 2002. And number 1, Roman Reigns to Cody Rhodes. All signs pointed towards Cody Rhodes winning the title at WrestleMania 39. And when Roman Reigns pinned Rhodes 1-2-3 in the main event of the show, fans needed answers. In the months that followed, reports would claim that Roman Reigns was of the belief that if Rhodes lost the match, it would make his eventual win even more heroic. While some were bold to demand he retain the title in the main event of WrestleMania, Reigns was correct. The subsequent win at WrestleMania 40 meant a lot more because Rhodes had spent the prior 12 months trying to reach the top of the WWE ladder once again. When WrestleMania 40 came around, Reigns had zero issues in putting over Rhodes and passing the torch to the next face of WWE.